Okay, I've fitted the routed out top onto the bottom. This is all loose, it's not glued or anything like that. Obviously you can see all the furry parts here that I've still got to clean up. What I want to see is just how well this system works, and that goes in there. And here's the fat boy. Now I suspect that with this one we're going to have to walk it in. Oh, there you go. Twist it around, there we go. And then it fits. So they're probably my two most awkward guns, and they fit in there pretty well. Bit of a twist, and that's out. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, Lazy Susan bearing underneath, finish all this lot off, some kind of handle in the middle, or a table for pellets or whatever, and we're away. I bought another central pole simply because I had to chop off a fair old bit from the end of this one because it was damaged. A grand sum of £1.90 for a new one of these, just a stop chamfer 41mm spindle rail. I've already marked out the thickness of my top part and the thickness of my bottom part for cutting this out. The whole thing, end to end, is 895mm long. So I'm going to recut the joints on the end, and that should give me another maybe 100mm or so, or slightly less perhaps, of space between here and here, which should make it absolutely perfect. The rifles fit now, but it's a little bit tighter than I like. So just to allow me a bit of leeway for the different size rifles, I've got that new pole. The next thing as well is I'm going to use a flat wheel and go around the edges of the plywood to get everything nice and smooth. So onwards. The chop saw is still set to the depth that I used for cutting the joint out in the first place, so should replicate that. I've put this piece back in piece there, nice straight level piece of wood, to bring it out so that the saw actually cuts a nice level cut. If it was up there, it'd curve up at the back end, which is not what I want. So let's go. Just got that first little bit out so that I can check it with my holes. Now you can see the difference in height now that I've used, well, the whole of that of a spindle rail, and indeed it makes a very nice difference to the way the rack works. You can see we've got all that space now between the end of the forend of that LG V to the underneath of the top rack, which is spot on. Next thing, obviously we start on the sanding, but seems like a decent time to mention this. I was thinking about how to finish off the top, and I'm kind of torn. Obviously this still needs sanding, between maybe something that I can stack things on, like pellets in between all the middle, or I could fit something like that onto the top just to finish it off, or perhaps just a pine knob, and I really haven't made my mind up yet, and I'm not quite sure which way I'm going to go with it, but so far so good. So we now have a Lazy Susan bearing, so that basically looks like that. Just got to fasten that onto the bottom. Here I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some more pieces, like a collar, just to make it so that this is not just tenon into there, but it fits into another effectively bigger tenon, and then it's supported by about 40mm instead of 20, and I'll do the same at the top, and that makes the whole thing stronger, which I like the idea of. So, just finishing touches. Out of the Newell cap that I bought, flattened it off and chopped out the centre part, so that now fits quite nicely onto one of these poles, and that will go to the bottom there. I'll do the same with a bit of plywood up at the top, just to give me that extra reinforcement. I'll just plane a little bit of flat on there because it's chipping out a little bit on this thin edge, so that'll go to the bottom, and then we'll glue it all together. Right, next job is to mount the Lazy Susan. I've centred it up, it's 65mm away from the edge, and I've got some screws that are just an appropriate length. I don't want them too long, I don't want them poking through the other end. So it just mounts on with 3 screws. So let's get this mounted on. There we are, there's 3 screws, all mounted as you want it. Perfect. So, final sand up, and we can start gluing the thing together. All the parts are more or less there now. I've made this part just to reinforce the top part as well from underneath. Just again cut out a piece of plywood and trimmed so that it fits nicely onto that 41mm spindle. So that again adds to the gluing area and will reinforce the whole deal when it's all together and glued, etc, etc. Keep all everything nice and stable. This one on the bottom. So there, we're about ready for gluing everything together. A quick look at what it's looking like so far. Everything ready for gluing together. Lazy Susan bearing works well. Everything's lined up nicely. Reinforcement to the bottom, reinforcement to the top. Yeah, happy with that. Everything's sanded down nicely, ready for gluing. Right, it's all glued up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to varnish it. I'm not going to stain it, I'm just going to leave it as it is, simply because I've built this to fit inside a built-in wardrobe, so it's going to be sort of like spend most of its life in dark. It doesn't really matter about the sort of colour and colour of it. So I'm just going for a clear varnish on this. I've also bought some of this nice thick felt, which I'm going to cut to fit in the base of these. And at the top here, some stick-on green baize. I'm going to go all the way around the edges with that, so that the barrels of the guns don't get marked when they go into the top of the rack. Now, I'm just finishing off the varnishing. And I've got to say that having this mounted on a Lazy Susan so the whole thing spins makes the job very much easier. Now one of the things that I've been thinking about was, if you've been watching how I've made this thing, you've probably seen I've got a scroll saw which I used for cutting out the central joint. I've got a biscuit joint, bits and bobs like that, which you might not have. However, that doesn't mean to say you can't make one of these things. For instance, if you haven't got, there's various ways of cutting square holes like I did. Number one, you could open out the majority of the hole with a flat bit and then just chisel out the corners. You could drill 4 holes, go around with a jigsaw, numerous different ways of doing it. You don't have to have the scroll saw and the biscuit jointer and all the bits and bobs that I've got to be able to do this thing. It's just, I happen to have them. So, there you go. Nearly finished. Another 20 minutes worth of brushing. This is the rack all together, working. All the guns fit on, either scope out or scope in, which is quite successful. They all walk out quite easily, which is nice. And that's the fattest barrel I've got, because that's the pull short shroud. So they all fit in pretty easily, which is a good thing. And that's the most difficult one. If you take something like this, which is the LGU, slides in and out really easily, as of course do the 97s, which is spot on. So quite a good thing. Spins nice and straightforward. A little bit of space in the middle that I'm just using at the minute for storing some pallets. I'll probably invent something different to put in the middle of there to be a bit more specialist. But that's it, ready for going to its final place for my gun storage.